At midnight on January 1st, 2026, at Hangzhou's Lakefront, Intime Street, a young man facing a line of police officers bravely shouted, "Happy New Year!" He even added, "Happy New Year, police uncle." His slightly awkward yet courageous smile stood in stark contrast to the heavily prepared police officers behind him. This strange and absurd scene may be forever remembered in history as a unique way to ring in the new year under the rule of the Chinese Communist Party. Authorities were on high alert. They shut down the countdown screens, banned fireworks and lights, canceled all events. But despite that, the citizens of Hangzhou still gathered at the scene, spontaneously counting down to celebrate the new year. Since December 31st, 2025, the authorities have treated the situation as a major threat, deploying large numbers of police and security personnel at the Hangzhou lakefront, prohibiting people from celebrating the New Year, and beginning to implement road closures.
Let me tell you what's going on at Longshan Bridge metro station on New Year's Eve in Hangzhou. It's really simple, 6 words. Can't get in, can't get out. Every major entrance has security, and there are barriers everywhere. They're all one way, only letting people out, not in. Right now, it's about 10:30 p.m. Just take a look at the area around Longshan Bridge Station. It's still really crowded. I saw the station was still open during the day, but by 8 p.m., it was shut down. People are still pouring in from the Westlake precinct. Let me show you how many fences there are here. Here's one, and here's another. This one is the outermost fence, right next to the Huawei store.
New Year's Eve, a moment that should have been celebrated globally, was instead met with heavy precautions from the Chinese government. Not only were New Year's events cancelled in many places across China, but streets in cities like Hangzhou, Shanghai, Beijing, Nanjing, Qingdao, and Guangzhou were filled with large groups of police officers standing nearby, creating human barricades. In some areas, even armed police and military were deployed, enforcing martial law. Despite this, the enthusiasm of the people could not be stopped, and large crowds gathered in the streets to celebrate. On the evening of December 31st, 2025, in Shanghai's Bund area, which had always been a popular New Year's Eve spot, the scene was starkly different. Instead of festive fireworks, a large number of soldiers were seen patrolling the streets, roads were blocked, and exits were shut off. A woman shouted. A loudspeaker repeatedly broadcasted in a cold tone. The crowd couldn't help but react. Some netizens remarked, "After being treated like cattle for a whole year, finally, on the last day, we got to be monkeys." What used to be the Grand New Year celebration on the Bund was now replaced by soldiers, armed police, and crowds unwilling to leave. This scene was not just about cancelled events, but it felt like a complete imposition of martial law. In Beijing, just like in Shanghai, there were no fireworks or official countdown events, only thousands of citizens who spontaneously took to the streets, wrapped in thick winter coats, waiting for a celebration that should have been theirs. Yet, moments before midnight, events were suddenly cancelled in many places. In Beijing, tens of thousands of people counted down on their own. At Chaoyang's He a large screen that was originally lit up went black just at the crucial moment. Some thought it was a surprise, but it turned out to be a technical error. That moment turned the crowd's hopeful anticipation into frustration. One frustrated netizen said, "Why wasn't this announced earlier? It could have been avoided. The public wouldn't have wasted their time, and businesses wouldn't have lost out. Why cancel at the last minute? This is treating people like monkeys." The Chinese Communist Party seems to be afraid of everything: words, pictures, videos. What they fear most is the spreading of discontent among the people. Once ignited, it's impossible to control. As many said, everyone knows the truth. It's almost over for the CCP. In Jiangxi province, things got worse. The New Year's countdown at Longhu Tianjie Plaza was cut off 22 seconds before the end. Thousands of young people were left standing in confusion. The authorities claimed it was for public safety. Netizens questioned, "Do they think we're stupid? We're already here. Traveling is already unsafe. Why not inform us earlier that there would be no countdown? Why cancel last minute?" One netizen responded, "Death is near. They just fear the countdown." In Qingdao, things took an even more extreme turn. On the night of December 31st, the famous Shilaoren Bridge, which used to be a popular spot for fireworks and New Year celebrations, turned into a militarized fortress. Large groups of armed police and special forces patrolled the area, with fences set up along a 1.7-kilometer stretch of coastline. Every checkpoint required a body search. The reason? Last year, spontaneous fireworks at this location were criticized by the authorities, so this year it escalated to a complete lockdown. However, the people's spirit remained unbroken. At May 4th Square, crowds still gathered, releasing balloons to ring in the new year. Qingdao's New Year's Eve perfectly demonstrated both the authorities' fear and the people's resilience. The more the authorities tried to block them, the more the people found ways to express their desire to welcome the new year. On the night of December 31st, in the heart of Xinjieko Square, police set up 2 human barricades to prevent the public from offering flowers to the bronze statue of the founder of the Republic of China, Sun Yat-sen. The authorities had briefly relaxed their control, and a wave of people surged toward the statue, attempting to celebrate the new year spontaneously. But soon, police formed a tight barrier around the statue, ready for any disturbances. The comment sections were filled with mockery. What kind of regime is so afraid of its own people? What kind of wrongdoings must they have committed? Commentator Xiang Yang remarked, this level of control shows that the people's hearts have shifted. The authority of the CCP is crumbling. In Suzhou, Jiangsu province, crowds gathered at the eastern gate to celebrate the new year, but the scene was plunged into darkness, with only police lights flashing. Netizens could only sigh in response. In Shandong's Zibo, tens of thousands of people waited hours to celebrate, only to be met with police blaring over loudspeakers. There will be no countdown event today. Please leave quickly. On December 31st, in Hebei's Shijiazhuang, several armed police vehicles lined up in formation, creating a tense atmosphere. Netizens quickly remarked, "Who are they preparing for?" Just a year ago, this place had won a national award for its New Year's event, but this year, all the activities were cancelled. Despite the authorities' attempts to create an atmosphere of fear, the passionate students in Shijiazhuang still gathered at Zhongshan Road to celebrate, counting down and releasing balloons, even without fireworks. Their actions perfectly encapsulated the authorities' fear and the resilience of the people. The more the government tried to block them, the more people expressed their longing for the new year in their own ways. In Anhui's Wuhu, police and special forces were everywhere. A woman in the crowd remarked, "Look at this human wall. They block us and make us turn in circles. Once we turn around, they're gone. Look, hurry up." In Shanxi's Taiyuan, there was supposed to be a lively New Year's performance, but before the event, a large red screen appeared, announcing, "Due to force majeure, tonight's New Year performance is cancelled." Netizens quickly saw through this excuse, mocking. In normal countries, force majeure could be a storm or an earthquake, but in China, the only real force majeure is the government's power. A netizen from Taiyuan, disappointed after spending time getting ready, said, "I finally got ready and came out looking nice, only to find that all the events were cancelled. Why were they cancelled? Seriously, where can I go now?" On Harbin Central Square, the police set up a windshield wiper-style human wall on New Year's Eve, leading netizens to lament. Throughout the whole country on New Year's Eve, the ones taking center stage were the police. Whose country is this? These officers sacrificed their holiday, spending the whole night doing these absurd things. On social media, people from all over the country uploaded footage of being stopped or arrested by police for chanting slogans or setting off fireworks. In Hangzhou, the public's enthusiasm on New Year's Eve was dampened by the heavy pressure from the CCP. No one dared to speak out, creating an unusually quiet atmosphere. However, a foreigner led the crowd in chanting, igniting the passion in everyone. They were later taken away by CCP police. Netizens lamented, "The CCP doesn't even spare foreigners. This time, foreigners finally experienced the Soviet-style white terror. China is just like the late Soviet Union." On January 1st, in Ningbo, Zhejiang province, 2 young people who were setting off fireworks were arrested by the police. In the chaos, the fireworks were shot into the surrounding crowds of onlookers. In Shandong's Lingyi and Heze, young people setting off fireworks were also arrested by the police, causing the fireworks to fly in all directions, endangering the crowd. This form of law enforcement is already illegal, putting the public at risk. But in the CCP's logic, the real concern isn't the danger posed by fireworks, but the importance of arresting people. There are also videos showing young people ignoring the authorities' ban on fireworks, only to be chased down by the police. Many were taken away. Netizens commented, "When there's a ban, there's a rebellion. In the face of desperation, what is fear? Youth should act like youth, resisting unreasonable restrictions." On the evening of January 1st in Jiangxi, because fireworks were prohibited locally, some people took boats into the middle of the river to set off fireworks. The police, after hearing the noise, could only stand on the shore helplessly. On New Year's Eve in Shenzhen, some unidentified individuals in black set fire to balloons that street vendors were selling, causing explosions. Netizens pointed out, this is definitely the CCP's lackeys at work. They've done this before, secretly causing trouble. These black-clad people are definitely troublemakers. One netizen remarked, "These people wearing black are worse than animals. These street vendors worked so hard to earn a little income, and they ruined it all." Another netizen said, "It's tragic. There's no formal procedure to confiscate and destroy people's things. They just lit up all the hydrogen balloons in one go, without any basic common sense." On New Year's Eve, when a young man set off fireworks, several police officers immediately seized the items, and the young man was taken away. On January 1st in Jiangxi's Shanghai, police chased a group of people who were setting off fireworks from electric vehicles along the road. In Hebei's Qinhuangdao, at the Wanda Plaza on New Year's Eve, a man was arrested by the police for setting off firecrackers. In Anhui's Wuhu, several citizens were arrested for setting off fireworks by the roadside. The CCP even deployed fire trucks to put out the fireworks. It seems that if the people like it, the CCP must stop it, but if the people don't like it, they'll push it forward. As we enter the new year in 2026, the whole world is celebrating, and the Chinese people are no exception. However, the Chinese Communist Party has turned the celebration into a farce, with martial law, lockdowns, event cancellations, and even the refusal to allow a countdown. What should have been a joyous occasion has become sober. Why is the CCP so afraid of the people? Because, to them, this New Year's event symbolizes the arrival of a new era, and more like a countdown to the CCP's end. Let's take a look at Taiwan's New Year's Eve celebration. On the other side of the strait, there were fireworks. Netizens sarcastically remarked that China should return to Taiwan. Taiwan's existence is a mirror for the CCP, a powerful proof of the CCP's deception, enslavement, and the exploitation of the Chinese people. So, what is the CCP afraid of? As one netizen pointed out, the CCP is afraid that the people's New Year's celebrations will turn into an Iranian revolution. As 2025 transitioned into 2026, the CCP's close ally, Iran's dictatorial government, was facing an unprecedented crisis. Economic realities ignited anger. Their currency collapsed, inflation surged to 42%, and food prices rose by 72%. Starting on December 29th, people flooded the streets in protest. And this wasn't a sporadic protest, but a nationwide political revolution that was ongoing and escalating. On December 29, 2025, the anger of the people spread from the Grand Bazaar in Tehran, where hundreds of merchants went on strike, shutting down the bazaar and Charso Mall. The crowds shouted, "Don't be afraid, we are together," and "Not Gaza, not Lebanon, my life is for Iran." The protests quickly spread to Mashhad, Isfahan, and Sabzavar, with slogans directed at the regime, "Bring back the king." On the second day, students entered the scene, and bullets were fired. Strikes continued across many bazaars, with universities fully joining the battle. Students at Isfahan Polytechnic shouted, "Overthrow the Islamic Republic, restore the Pahlavi dynasty." At Karamabad Park, security forces fired live ammunition, and at least 30 cities took synchronized action. By the third day, the repression escalated, but the protesters didn't retreat. Actions continued in various locations. Armored vehicles entered cities, the internet was cut, but news kept flowing out. On the fourth day, starting at dawn on New Year's Day, full-scale resistance broke out. Uprisings in various places, bases seized, buildings set on fire. The slogans became more direct. This is the final battle. This is the year of blood. The supreme leader will be overthrown. Who's leading the revolution? Merchants, students, teachers, women, retirees. Everyone is involved. Large groups of Iranian protesters flooded the streets of Arak in the central province, confronting the Islamic regime's terror forces. Special forces police from the regime participated in the killings of protesters across several cities, but the people's resistance kept growing. In Hamadan's Asadabad community, a video showed protesters confronting and subduing a member of the Islamic regime's special forces. In Fars, anti-government protesters set fire to the religious police building. In Kermanshah, unarmed Iranians used fire extinguishers to create smoke, blocking the vision of the regime's thugs. In Elam, brave protesters flipped over vehicles belonging to the regime's terror forces. In Kadasht, Loristan province, Iranian protesters were tearing down and burning the Islamic regime's statues and monuments. After the resistance, the besieged militia of the Iranian government was attacked by Molotov cocktails and set on fire. On January 1st, as the protests entered their 5th day, Iranians welcomed the new year in a new way. Brave women threw off their Islamic clothing and shouted freedom, freedom to live and smile. A breathtaking scene at Tarabal saw people shouting, "Gaza and Lebanon should die for Iran." They also destroyed surveillance cameras used by the Islamic regime to monitor citizens. In legendary footage from Iran, the regime's henchmen were seen fleeing in panic, with Iranian patriots chasing them down relentlessly. On New Year's Day, the conflict intensified. Protesters began controlling parts of the government, and the government declared a nationwide shutdown. Security forces began firing on civilians, causing many deaths, and military police stormed schools to arrest students. The situation escalated into violent repression. People shouted, "Down with Khamenei, the dictatorial government is finished." Meanwhile, Russia was urgently sending weapons to Iran. A Russian Il-76TD military transport plane landed in Tehran, reportedly carrying military goods from both China and Russia. It was the 5th plane in 48 hours, raising concerns about what military supplies were being transferred. The Iranian dictatorship was on the verge of collapse, and the Russia-China evil axis was in panic. One netizen posted, "A former Iranian colleague of mine once told me that if it weren't for China, the Iranian people would have already overthrown the government. Every time the Iranian people are on the brink of victory, China sends the Iranian government money and weapons to maintain stability." The brave struggle of the Iranian people provides a valuable example for young people in China. It shows how ordinary people, through courage and unity, can fight against a totalitarian regime to win freedom and dignity. From economic collapse to political awakening, Iran's revolution reminds us, persistence can bring change. Freedom is not a gift, it must be fought for. The next revolution may be in China.